In this module, we'll examine the relationship between two variables. Recall, the variables are either quantitative or categorical. We will denote Q for quantitative variable and C for categorical variable. And so those are the two types of variable. In a relationship, they can play the role of either explanatory or response. And explanatory variable, also commonly referred to as the independent variable, these are the variables that claim to explain, predict, or affect the response. The response variable, commonly referred to as the dependent variable, the outcome of the study. Typically, the explanatory or independent variable is denoted by X, while the response or the dependent variable is denoted by Y. Mathematically, if there is a relationship between two variables, then we often denote the independent variable, or X, or in this case, explanatory variable, in the horizontal axis, and dependent variable, in this case, the response variables, in the vertical axis. And so we have an X horizontal axis and a Y vertical axis. Now, the explanatory variable can be either quantitative or categorical. Similarly, the response variable can be either quantitative or categorical. And so, because of this, we have a total of 4 cases. We might look at the relationship between a categorical variable and a categorical variable, a categorical variable and a quantitative variable, a quantitative variable and a categorical variable, a quantitative variable and a quantitative variable. There are only 4 cases here. The left column represents the explanatory variable, and the column on the right represent the response variable. So in this case, the left column is in the horizontal axis and the right column is in the vertical axis. In each of the 4 cases, there is an explanatory variable and there is a response variable. We will examine all of these 4 cases in detail. These are also known as the role type classification. Remember that the role will be either explanatory or response. The type will be either categorical or quantitative. So there are 2 types of variable, categorical or quantitative, and there are 2 roles, either explanatory or response. For example, if we want to know the relationship between the class standing and the GPA in this class, meaning we want to know whether freshman, sophomore, junior, senior will have higher GPA in any certain class. There are 2 types of variable in this case. The class standing are in groups, so these are the categorical variable, and the GPA, this is a number from 0 to 4.0. So it is a quantitative variable. And so this is the relationship between categorical and quantitative variable. So those are the 2 types. We need to determine the role as well. Which one is the explanatory and which one is the response variable? Keep in mind that the explanatory variable is the variable that claim to explain, predict, or affect the response, and the response variable will be the outcomes of the study. In this case, the outcome of the study will be the GPA. If anything, we would have a list of students and we would ask them their class standing, whether they are freshman or sophomore, junior, senior, and then we would also ask them their GPA, and we record these results. The class standing in this case will play a role of the explanatory variable, and the GPA will play the role of the response variable. We denote this relationship C, and then we tend to put an arrow Q. C, categorical, Q, quantitative. In this case, the categorical variable is the explanatory variable we listed first. The quantitative is the response variable we listed second. Let's take a look at another example. Let's say this time we are interested in the gender versus the major. Now, both genders and major are categorical variable. Further, assume that we want to see whether the gender can explain the majority of the major. If we want to know if a certain major is popular with male or female, in this case, we would use the gender as the explanatory variable, and we would report the major as the outcome or the response. In this example, both variables are categorical. The gender will be the explanatory variable, it plays the role of the explanatory variable, and the major will play the role of the response variable. We just gave two examples, categorical versus quantitative, categorical versus categorical. Remember, there are a total of 4 cases in the role types classification in examining relationships. We need to have 2 variables in a relationship.